Developing right now on Morning News Now, straight talk. Overnight, U.S. forces announcing that blockade of Iranian ports now fully implemented, effectively halting all Iran trade. President Trump suggesting peace talks between the U.S. and Iran could pick back up as early as this week. Iran's nuclear program still a central sticking point in negotiations.
The president he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain.
At the White House, Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosting the first direct talks between Israel and Lebanon in decades. We're going to bring you the very latest. Also developing out of the House, 2 lawmakers officially resigning from Congress over allegations of sexual misconduct. Now a new accuser stepping forward to share her story. We'll take you to Washington, where there's a new push for accountability on Capitol Hill. Plus, a series of springtime storms slamming the Midwest with heavy rain, hail, and reports of several tornadoes. And the threat is not over yet. We're also tracking unseasonable heat in several cities, set to break records today. Angie is here with the forecast. And small talk, big benefits, love it or hate it. We've all had to do it. Well, now we're learning those awkward conversations with strangers or acquaintances could make more of an impact than you think. We're going to unpack the science that supports a little small talk for more meaningful connections. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. We begin this morning with the latest out of the Middle East. We are learning a new round of in-person peace talks between the U.S. and Iran is expected as early as this week. That's according to 2 people who are familiar with the ongoing negotiations. Remember, just last weekend, Vice President J.D. Vance and his team failed to reach a long-term ceasefire agreement during those 21 hours of marathon negotiations in Pakistan. Still, Vance and President Trump offered hope for future peace talks this week. Right now, the U.S. military is enforcing what CENTCOM is calling a fully implemented blockade on ships that are entering or exiting Iranian ports. Those sources familiar with the negotiations told NBC News the major sticking points for any peace deal remain opening the Strait of Hormuz and addressing Iran's nuclear capabilities. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv, Israel, with the very latest out of the Middle East. Matt, good morning. So there's a new interview with Fox Business. President Trump saying the war is, quote, very close to over. What are the U.S. priorities right now ahead of any potential peace talks? And is there any indication that Iran is ready to come back to the table?
Yeah, well, to hear it from the United States side, Iran wants the deal. We heard this from President Trump, but we've also heard from President Trump several times already saying that the war is about to wind down, even as he's escalated or threatened more escalation in the same sentence. So it's unclear necessarily what he's referring to here. These negotiations, as you said, it looks as though we've heard signals from both sides that they are set to continue. We haven't seen any of the bombardments that characterized the first 5 weeks of this conflict. So it looks as though that ceasefire is standing. But the Strait of Hormuz remains a big outstanding issue. We now have a 2-ply blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians blockading and the Americans blockading the Iranians. So this is going to take quite a bit to untangle. These negotiations that we've been talking about in Islamabad were meant to come to a more permanent deal. Now, it looks as though these negotiators are still going to be trying just to secure the ceasefire that, in theory, is already enduring on the Strait of Hormuz and between Iran, Israel, and the United States.
And Matt, tangled into all of this, Israel and Lebanon, they had their own round of direct talks in Washington Tuesday. What are we learning about those negotiations?
That's right. Well, we heard from all sides saying that they were positive talks and that they were moving towards more direct talks. They're talking about choosing a venue. And the folks that I've been speaking to, the diplomats in Washington, said that these were positive talks. It doesn't look like so much was actually achieved, but we got to remember, there haven't really been this official level of talks between Lebanon and Israel for about 40 years. Now, the 2 sides have spoken regularly through intermediaries. They've dealt with each other when it comes to business deals, particularly gas extraction off the Mediterranean coast. But this is very historic. And just these baby steps, these modest negotiations, are a sign that there's some progress, not just in normalizing relations between these 2 countries, but also in Israel, maybe trying to take care of Hezbollah.
Matt, also in the middle of these peace talks, U.S. Central Command said last night that a blockade of those Iranian ports is now fully implemented that halts Iran's economic sea trade. How is this move impacting all the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, well, we haven't exactly heard whether or not we're going to be seeing any ships. You know, we've heard the U.S. say this before, and there have still been even U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned ships that have moved through the Strait of Hormuz. But now it looks as though this is an effective blockade. And again, it should be. It's a two-ply blockade with the Iranians and the Americans. So it is going to be scaring off quite a bit of tanker traffic. Now, remember, the U.S. blockade is meant to actually sap the Iranians' source of revenue from oil and gas. And that is also going to be striking China, which is one of the few countries that still buys oil from the Iranians despite all of those sanctions. The Chinese reacted with furiosity just in the past couple of days, saying that this war was leading to law of the jungle and demanding that the Strait of Hormuz be reopened.
All right, Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you so much. As the war rages on and the U.S. looks for a long-term ceasefire deal, military veterans are watching closely. One group of vets sat down with NBC News to discuss what could be next for the U.S. in the Middle East. NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist shows us what they had to say.
With the launch of airstrikes on Iran back in February, the U.S. entered a new war that's now stretched well into its second month. A fragile ceasefire coming only after Operation Epic Fury destroyed more than 13,000 targets across Iran, according to the Pentagon.
The United States has devastated the regime's ability to harm Americans and our interests for years to come.
We gathered a group of veterans who've served all over the world and have been watching the war with Iran closely from day one.
We're in it now, deal with what we have at hand. When you're on a mission, you don't stop to ask your NCO, your first sergeant, your captain, why are we doing this?
Universally, these vets support the fighters in the U.S. military and said that something needed to be done.
I'm behind Trump. Whatever he wants to do, I'm for it. As far as I'm concerned, kick some ass. Just get in there and kick some ass.
I think that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been terrorizing the world for about 40 years. I absolutely agree with the decision to ensure that Iran was not a nuclear threat.
We asked about the president's war of words, his post saying a whole civilization will die tonight. Some vets believe the rhetoric is not helpful and potentially dangerous.
Rhetoric will impact everything, whether we're in a war or we're sitting here at a conversation.
It could be negative to the troops, so I do believe that they need to maybe find different words to get their point across.
As the administration sends ground troops to the region, some veterans say sending them into Iran would be a bridge too far.
When he said he was going to send ground troops, that just broke my heart, because we need to get it done without ground troops. That's more deaths.
In 38 days of fighting, nearly 5,000 people were killed across the Middle East, most of them in Iran, according to a U.S.-based rights group. That number includes 13 U.S. service members. And even after the war ends, these veterans think the U.S. military presence won't.
What do you think of the idea that the U.S. might have to prop up society for years to come after the war?
I think after this is all said and done, there still need to be some forces over there.
Are we going to be there? I would believe so. Are we going to stay there longer than we should? I would say yes, if it was my opinion.
My father was part of the occupation forces in Italy after the war, and I was born there. I mean, occupation forces are part of what we do.
Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News.
Former California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell is facing a new criminal investigation after another accuser came forward alleging that he violently sexually assaulted her. Swalwell resigned from Congress yesterday amid mounting accusations from multiple women, including a former staffer. NBC's Alice Barr joins me now with the latest developments. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Swalwell, a prominent Democrat, was running for California governor before this series of accusations of sexual misconduct, the latest triggering a second criminal review.
After his enemies. But what I want to talk to you next
in a new push for accountability, former California Congressman Eric Swalwell, one of two House members who resigned on Tuesday, now facing another criminal investigation, with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department looking into serious new allegations allegations from this woman, Lana Drews, who says Swalwell drugged her drink, raped and choked her in a California hotel room in 2018.
I lost consciousness, and I thought I died.
Drews says she met Swalwell socially, was interested in a business relationship, and that while she didn't report the alleged assault at the time, she did confide in multiple people and make handwritten notes, saying her delay in coming forward
Was driven by fear, not doubt.
Swalwell, a married father of 3, apologized for past mistakes in judgment while forcefully denying all allegations of sexual assault or misconduct that multiple women have made against him. Swalwell's attorney called all of the accusations false, fabricated, and deeply offensive, alleging they're a political hit job. Swalwell, a prominent Democrat, dropped his run for California governor and chose to resign from Congress as fellow lawmakers threatened to expel him. Texas Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez making the same decision on the same day. The married father of 6 previously admitted to an affair with a staffer who later died by suicide.
I made a mistake, and I had a lapse in judgment.
The 2 resignations won't shift the balance of power in Congress, but advocates are hoping for change. Swalwell is already facing a separate criminal investigation over an alleged assault in a Manhattan hotel room in 2024. California's governor announced an August special election to fill the rest of Swalwell's term. Joe, back to you.
All right, Alice, thank you. In a new interview, the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is praising President Trump's handling of the Department of Justice. Blanche told NBC News Americans should be happy that the president is deeply involved with the DOJ. Traditionally, past presidents have shaped policy at the department, but steered clear of influencing or directing investigations and prosecutions, leaving that to career professionals. Blanche was once President Trump's defense attorney, but just this month, he was appointed acting AG after former Attorney General Pam Bondi was ousted. She fell out of favor with the president after bringing several failed cases against his political opponents. She also faced criticism over her handling of the Epstein files. In yesterday's interview, our senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett, Blanche downplayed those cases, and he explained how he would handle similar directives by President Trump if confirmed to lead the DOJ.
Last September, the president sent a message to the then Attorney General, Pam Bondi. He's imploring her to charge former FBI Director James Comey. I'm sure you know the post well. If you're nominated and you're confirmed as the next Attorney General, what do you do with a message like that?
The president's, look, I do exactly what we did with the message last time. And we have thousands and thousands of investigations going on in this, federal investigations going on in this country right now. There is outsized focus on a handful of them because they involve individuals that the president has had significant issues, for good reason, by the way, with in the past. That will continue for the rest of the time he's president. I think the fact that he encourages or directs or expects the Department of Justice to do its job, that those type of messages do not faze me. As a matter of fact, I want a president that does that.
For more, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. So, Mel, in several recent interviews, including this one, Blanche has sort of dismissed the idea of this firewall that traditionally existed between the White House and the DOJ to preserve independence, to avoid the appearance of political prosecutions. When asked if the president is calling the shots at DOJ headquarters or if the acting AG is, Blanche said, quote, "He is my boss." So what's the takeaway here? Is Blanche learning from some of Bondi's mistakes?
Well, we know that the president was really frustrated with Bondi, that she, in his view, did not do enough to go after some of Trump's perceived political enemies, and that was what contributed to her firing at the DOJ. So perhaps Blanche is really trying to show Trump that there is a new sheriff of town, especially as he is in this really trial period right now, trying to secure a permanent spot at the Department of Justice. But, Joe, he could run into the exact same issues that Pam Bondi did. A federal judge blocked the subpoenas for Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. The cases against both New York Attorney General Letitia James as well as former FBI Director James Comey, both were tossed out. And the DOJ also failed to indict those 6 members of Congress who made that military orders video that Trump labeled as seditious conspiracy. So we'll see see whether Blanche has any better luck than his predecessor. The DOJ is considering whether to try to bring the case again against James Comey. But what's really striking from that interview is, to your point, just how little he tried to do to create that firewall that traditionally has existed between the DOJ and the White House.
Mel, I also want to ask about the Epstein files, which is a big deal. We know a group of survivors of the late sex offender filed a class action lawsuit against the Trump administration and also Google last week. They're alleging their personal information was wrongfully disclosed and published online along with those files. So what is Blanche saying about that, and just some of the questions that remain over whether this case is really closed?
Well, he did acknowledge that mistakes were made at the DOJ. He said it was, quote, horrible and, quote, inexcusable that some of those names were ultimately identified from some of the victims. But he also tried to explain that the DOJ was sorting through millions of documents and that they were on the clock to release these documents because of the congressional law. And so he was trying to explain, or at least shed light on, why some of those names did slip through the cracks. Now, in terms of whether there will be additional prosecutions, that has been one really big question around this entire Epstein case. Laura did ask him about that. He said nothing is off the table, that there could be more things to come, that this case is not yet closed. Joe.
All right, Mel, thank you so much. A high school principal in Oklahoma is being hailed as a hero for quickly taking action to stop a suspected school shooter. The police chief says the principal saved kids' lives when he tackled the gunman who was allegedly armed with 2 semi-automatic handguns. The incident was caught on camera. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda shows us how it all unfolded.
New video of the heart-stopping moments a gunman walks into Pauls Valley High School in Oklahoma. You can see a pistol in hand. But watch what unfolds next. Principal Kirk Moore in the blue shirt emerging from another door and tackling the suspect, identified by police as 20-year-old Victor Hawkins, a former student of the school. Just feet away, you can see a young person slip out during Moore's fast-acting efforts. Authorities say the principal was shot in the chaos, but managed to get the suspect to drop the gun. Another staff member then scrambling to pick it up.
It doesn't surprise me, the actions that he took, but it is amazing at the actions that he took. There's not a doubt in my mind that he saved kids' lives.
In a statement, Moore said in part, like so many educators around the country, we prepare for these events. I'm grateful that my instincts and training, as well as God's hand, were available to me. The suspect told investigators he was inspired by the Columbine school shooting, according to an affidavit. He now faces numerous charges, including shooting with intent to kill, as the shaken school community is grateful no one was killed, thanks to the heroic actions of their principal. Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
Another round of dangerous storms swept through the Midwest overnight. Heavy rain and gusty winds tore through Wisconsin, causing devastating flooding that damaged a number of homes and washed away roads. The storm produced golf ball-sized hail that crashed into houses and cars in several communities near Madison. In Iowa, the storm system spawned this twister. It was captured on video as it touched down over a field, stirred up some dirt, and grew in size before fizzling out. A number of tornadoes were reported in the Midwest yesterday, leaving a path of destruction across several states. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is in Kansas with the latest.
It's coming right at us. Devastating tornadoes ripping across the heartland, hitting hard in both Iowa
This is crazy.
and Kansas. At least 15 reported tornadoes wreaking a path of destruction across the Midwest.
Pretty obvious funnel under a rotating wall cloud. Getting pretty close to the ground.
In Hillsdale, Kansas, the walls of these homes shredded to pieces. Crews already racing to repair the downed power lines littered across the roads. People left stunned from the damage.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe this. I used to work here. This is nutty.
In Ottawa, Jeffrey Castleberry says he was in his home with 6 others, including an 18-month-old baby, when the tornado rolled through.
We opened the door to come through to the family room, and the wall just disappeared in front of us.
You saw it?
Yeah, the wall was gone. Yeah, it was there, and then it was gone.
Violent storms also hit Wisconsin. Car after car after car smashed by fallen trees. And in Colorado, during an April snowstorm, more than 75 vehicles estimated to be part of this massive highway pileup, shutting down one side of I-70. Back in Kansas, the cleanup is underway, with the daunting task of rebuilding now ahead.
We've been here 11 years, and we lost everything.
And the family says they were trying to get to their cellar through that door, through what used to be their family room. They say they stepped outside, realized it was way too late, instead huddled around each other with that baby in between all of them as the debris was flying around. Back to you.
Incredible. All right, Shaq, thank you so much. Let's get the latest on that severe weather and bring in NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman. Angie, good morning.
Hi there, Joe. Good morning to you. Unfortunately, another day where we're going to ramp up those severe chances yet again. You can see an active morning so far across the Great Lakes, places stretching really from Michigan into Illinois and back into Iowa, as well as Kansas and Missouri, dealing with some of those thunderstorms this morning. We've also got a flood concern as we received additional rainfall on top of some of these already saturated grounds, so flood watches and for the entire state of Michigan, and those stretch a little farther south, of course, into parts of Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana. Here's what's going on. We've got kind of this thunderstorm development that we're going to see happen in the warm part of this system, out ahead of this cold front. The highest risk for today for severe weather, you're going to notice, really centered across the Midwest, but it does stretch into parts of the Northeast and back down to the south. So Oklahoma City, Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Indianapolis, all on the table for you with the hail, the wind gusts, and even a couple of tornadoes. That's the area for today. By tomorrow, this is on the move. So we see this kind of, again, storm development happening, especially in the late day and evening hours for severe weather. That's going to be the bullseye of our greatest chance to see those pop up. The good news is it's a much smaller risk area, but some general thunderstorms possible still from the Northeast stretching back to the south. We do have all the threats on the table once again. And then as we head, of course, into Friday, finishing out our work week, we're going to see this new cold front kind of ramp up and move across parts of the plains. This, once again, brings us more strong storms. You can see stretching really, again, those same areas across parts of the south into the Midwest. We've got the hail, the wind gusts, and the tornadoes likely. So really multiple more days of this here on the table. Always reminding you got to have a way to get those alerts if you live in any of these risk areas. And on top of that, we've got the flood risk with some additional rain because, of course, again, some of this happening over the same areas day after day. So saturated soils, we've got upwards of 2 and even 3 inches of rain possible, Joe. So this is going to be something that we see kind of lasting at least through the end of our work week when it comes to the severe weather and the potential for flooding.
All right, Angie, thank you so much. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, tax day trouble, why experts are warning last-minute filers about using AI to make today's tax deadline. Up first after the break, the husband of a woman missing in the Bahamas out of custody and now speaking out.
I've never harmed Lynette, and I never would harm Lynette, and I want to find Lynette.
What else he's saying about her disappearance and the efforts to find her. Stay with us. Welcome back. For the first time, we are hearing directly from Brian Hooker, who is suspected in the disappearance of his wife, Lynette, in the Bahamas. Hooker sat down with NBC's Jesse Kirsch just hours after he was released from police custody. Here's part of that conversation.
Did police ever explicitly ask you if you hurt your wife? Of course. What did you say to them? I said I've never harmed Lynette, and I never would harm Lynette, and I want to find Lynette.
Brian Hooker is a free man.
Sorry, no comment.
Speaking out just hours after Bahamian authorities released him from custody. He faces no charges, but investigators tell us he remains a suspect in the disappearance of his wife, Lynette, who vanished more than a week ago.
Police still look at you as a suspect. Why do you think that is? I think some of it is probably the media attention, which is understandable. The faster they get it out of the way, the more police can come and help search.
Hooker says Lynette fell from their dinghy in unpredictable seas, but his attorney advised him not to discuss the details.
If there's anything you can share about Easter weekend that you remember. I cannot share anything. I don't want to take a chance that anything could interfere with the search. I welcome any attention, anything that helps me further my goal of finding Lynette.
I also asked him about reports he and Lynette have had a volatile relationship.
What do you want people to know about your marriage with Lynette? I want people to know that Lynette is my life, and we've been together almost half my life, and we belong to each other.
Hooker telling me he plans to keep searching for Lynette.
I don't think I've ever been apart from her in 25 years.
for this long. She wouldn't stop, and I'm not going to stop.
The Royal Bahamas Defense Force telling me it is looking to suspend its search for Lynette Hooker by Thursday. The reality is they are simply running out of viable places to look. Back to you.
All right, Jesse, thank you. Pope Leo is continuing his historic tour across Africa. NBC's Matt Bodner joins us now to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Pope Leo on Tuesday followed in the footsteps of his spiritual father, St. Augustine, by making a pilgrimage to the city of Annaba. This is a city in Algeria where St. Augustine lived in the 5th century, completed some of the most influential works in the Western tradition. Algeria is the Pope's first stop on a 4-country tour of Africa. Moving along now to Poland, thousands of people on Tuesday gathered at the site of the Auschwitz concentration camp for the annual March of the Living. The event included 50 Holocaust survivors from around the world. The march is run on the Jewish calendar's Holocaust Remembrance Day. It begins at Auschwitz and runs 2 miles to Birkenau. And we'll wrap up this hour in Brazil, where paleontologists have identified the fossilized remains of a newly discovered reptile species. This reptile had a parrot-like beak. We'll get back to that. It lived about 230 million years ago, at a time when the continents were joined together as Pangaea. Similar remains have been found in Scotland. So, Joe, we have, I guess, a proto-parrot. I wonder what they would say if they knew that their descendants now explore the oceans in food containers. Back to you.
Oh, it's Bebe again. Matt, are you working on your exclusive interview with Bebe?
Working on it.
Working on it. All right. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Matt.
Week.
Coming up, medical misinformation generated by chatbots. When we come back, the new study that shows how AI technology could be giving you the wrong medical advice. Our Dr. Azar is here for our weekly checkup that is next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. It is time for our weekly medical checkup. This week, how ultra-processed foods could be holding back your muscle gains in the gym. Plus, new concerns about trusting AI chatbots for medical advice, as well as the potential brain boost from a plant-based diet. Here to break it all down, NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Good to see you. So, of course, we always talk about the dangers of ultra-processed food. This time, we're specifically looking at the impact on muscles. What are we learning here?
So this was really interesting. So in this group of people, they were actually looking at individuals who were at risk for knee arthritis. And what they wanted to assess was the amount of fat that was depositing between their muscles in their thighs and how that related to the amount of ultra-processed food that they ate. And what they found was that the higher amounts of ultra-processed food led to more of this fat between the muscle in the thigh. Not so much, there's actually fat in the muscle that can help with like athletic performance, but it's the fat in between the muscle that was a problem here. And that's bad for strength, it's bad for mechanics, and all of those things. So my doctor's orders are prioritize whole food, limit ultra-processed food. Joe, I think this is just another in the lengthy list of reasons to avoid those ultra-processed foods.
Those doctor's orders apply for many, many, many things.
They do. They do.
All right, let's talk about AI chatbots. Obviously, we know too many people are turning them, trying to get medical advice. There's misinformation there. What type of inaccuracies are researchers finding here?
This was a really interesting study because what these researchers did, these were the different platforms that they were looking at: Gemini, DeepSeek, Meta AI, ChatGPT, and Grok. And what they did was that they probed, they stressed the system by asking 10 very open and 10 very closed questions. And the answers, Joe, are easy evidence-based answers that, like, if you Google, you should be able to get this answer because the answer is right if you do a Google search. And what they found was that these AI chatbots were problematic in 50% of the results that people were inquiring about. Wow. And this what was really interesting. They had 5 different places or 5 different domains that they were asking questions about. They performed best with vaccine and cancer-related questions, and they performed most poorly with questions about stem cells. I don't know why they chose that. Athletic performance and nutrition. So there was some variability. I'm at least a little bit happy that with the cancer stuff, they were right more of the time. So my doctor's orders: be skeptical when you're Googling something. Consult original sources. And what I always tell my patients, look for something that says .org or .edu, because at that point you're looking at some usually academic medical centers, et cetera, and talk to your doctor. I never want AI to be a replacement, but it absolutely positively can be an adjunct to what you do with your doctor in the doctor's office.
I like checking original sources too. That's just not medical advice. I think too many people see the AI results for something and it's like, well, look where that came from.
Look where it came from. Right. Look at how robust the study was. Exactly.
Let's get back to diets and
Yes.
talk about plant-based diets could help protect against dementia.
Yeah.
So what exactly should people be eating and what difference could it make?
Okay, so this was they looked at over like close to 100,000 people, average age of 59, followed them for 11 years, and looked at their diets. And they basically found that people who consumed a healthy plant-based diet, that includes things like fresh vegetables, whole grains, fruits, nuts, and legumes, as opposed to an unhealthy plant-based diet. You might say, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
It's all those refined thank you, refined grains like those cereals with a lot of added sugars, right? So it's plant-based, but it's not necessarily healthy. The people who had a healthy plant-based diet had a 7% less likelihood of developing dementia. But the best part about this study, Joe, was that even if you started later in life, there was a benefit. And if you started eating more poorly later in life, there was a decrement. So I think that's important. It doesn't have to, I mean, we like it to start early, but even if it doesn't, you can still make an impact. Doctor's orders, quality matters, and I love that it's never too late, because I'm always like, I try to eat healthy and I tell everyone in the world to eat healthily, but I could also do better, right? And so this is another reason for me to go, you know what? I'm going to do better today, and it's not too late the older I get.
That's a happy note to end on here.
Thanks, Joe.
Dr. Azar, thank you so much.
You bet.
Let's move to mental health now. If you've ever pulled out your phone to avoid an awkward chat in the elevator, you're not alone. A majority of Americans say they find small talk awkward or boring and prefer silence. But a new study suggests we might be underestimating the power of small talk. Researchers believe those quick chats can actually lead to more meaningful connections. Psychotherapist Dr. Robbie Ludwig joins me now for a small talk on the topic. She's also the host of the Pivot with Robbie Ludwig podcast. Dr. Robbie, always good to have you with us. So this study was published Monday in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Just break it down for us. How did it work? What did it find?
Yeah, so basically it looked at about 1,800 people, and it was an impressive research model which found that people underestimated the amount that they would enjoy some of these micro interactions. So what they thought might be boring interactions and small talk ended up being way more interesting than they ever imagined. And it didn't really matter what the particular topic was. It could be sports, AI, you name it, that basically it was the connection that people were responding to. So this is what we've known all along, that interacting with others can increase our sense of connection and emotional well-being.
And it does need to go beyond, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. You need to have a little bit more than that. I know the study's lead author talked about how loneliness has become such a serious problem. It's considered an epidemic. We've talked about it on this program, but remind us of the health risks mentally and physically.
Yeah, so I mean, with technology, people are hiding behind their phones. They may even feel awkward with these small talk interactions. And the more disconnected we feel, the more loneliness we will experience. And so social connection really plays a key role in our mental and physical health. And strong relationships are linked to greater well-being and a lower risk of loneliness. And this doesn't always take place via technology. It's through our social connections, which are so important. We really need to see people face to face and feel like there's a moment like we are connecting with another human being and they are connecting with us. Even if it's small, it still matters.
People out there might dread the idea of small talk. So how can they get more comfortable? What are some easy strategies for breaking the ice with people?
Yeah, the way to get comfortable is continue to do it. Put down your phone and just start connecting. You can start talking, even if it starts with the weather. Don't worry about being boring. Ask open-ended questions and look for a shared interest and experience. And from there, even friendships can be born. But either way, there are strategies. And if you keep doing it, it's going to feel more comfortable.
There are some good books out there about small talk, too, that you can check out for a little bit of advice. All right, Dr. Robbie, always good to have you with us. Thanks for joining me this morning. Coming up on Morning News Now, a sophisticated scam costing victims billions of dollars.
This is not the work of some supercoder. This took me 3 minutes on a site that didn't even charge me money to do it, and that's super scary.
Up next, how thieves are using AI technology to try and steal people's life savings. And the world's biggest sport set to kick off on American soil, but prices and politics could cast a shadow on the FIFA World Cup. More on the controversy just 2 months out. Next. Back on this tax day was some advice for those scrambling to finish filing before the end of today's deadline. Though it might be tempting to use AI platforms to quickly wrap things up today, experts are warning about the risks of leaning on that technology. Chris Anderson from our South Florida affiliate WTVJ takes a closer look.
Whether it's Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or any other virtual assistant, people are turning to artificial intelligence to help them with a lot of things in their lives. Now, some are mixing AI technology with taxes.
You can use AI for doing your taxes, but we have to be aware that AI makes mistakes.
That's the important message that AI experts want people to understand. You can use AI for your taxes, but how you use it is the key.
I use it to understand new tax strategies or new tax rules, but at the end of the day, I'm still responsible when I file my taxes.
So if the chatbot is giving you a larger return than you've had in years past, you can't blame AI if Uncle Sam comes calling to investigate. You need to ensure that the information you submit is correct.
You can prepare it with AI. That will save you a lot of hours from the expert, but I would feel more comfortable if someone expert on the topic can review them to make sure that everything is all right before you submit your taxes.
And this year, there are several changes because of legislation passed as part of the Trump administration's One Big Beautiful Bill, including a standard deduction increase, child tax credit, and new deductions for seniors over 65. The AI platforms may not be aware of every exemption you qualify for. Bottom line,
you should use it to leverage your work, but you should not be using it to rely 100% on AI.
And our thanks to Chris Anderson for that report. Now, a recent survey by Invoice Home found 37% of surveyed taxpayers said they would consider using AI instead of a professional tax preparer or accountant, but that's actually down from last year when that number was 43%. Remember, your tax return includes sensitive personal information like your social security number and other data you just might not want to share with AI. We've got another warning, this one from the FBI. The agency wants you to know about a sophisticated investment scam costing Americans $16 billion over the course of just 1 year. Our chief consumer investigative correspondent, NBC News Daily anchor Vicki Nguyen, introduces us to a man who lost his life savings.
There we go.
Ron Williams never imagined he'd have to tell his son he lost everything he'd saved up to someone he never met.
At first, I was devastated and I felt stupid.
The 76-year-old retired insurance agent from Brooklyn says it started with a random text message from someone calling herself Jenny that turned into friendly banter, with Jenny sending this video and saying she was 33, Christian, and living in Boston.
But it was easy communication. It felt very comfortable.
Jenny soon told Williams she was making a fortune investing and asked him to join her. Within about 6 months, he'd invested $1.6 million. He could see his money growing on the platform. But Williams' son had suspicions. He did a reverse image search on Jenny and found several social media accounts using what appear to be the same videos.
Did you ever ask to meet her in person?
Several times.
There was always an excuse to not meet in person.
Right.
And when Williams wanted to take out his money, some $4 million, Jenny said he'd have to send more money to cover the taxes. That's when alarm bells started going off. Williams' son then made his own AI-generated video of Jenny to show him just how easy it is.
I felt this incredible connection.
Williams accepted he'd been scammed and reported it to police and the FBI.
This is not the work of some supercoder. This took me 3 minutes on a site that didn't even charge me money to do it, and that's super scary.
NBC News reached out to Jenny, but she never responded. We have not verified whether the person seen in the videos is real or AI generated.
Things that we would tell our
NYPD financial crimes detective Daniel Alessandrino says AI is supercharging these scams.
Now with AI, they're giving you realistic videos and it looks like you're really talking to the person.
He says in some cases, the scammers themselves are victims.
They're victims of human trafficking, where they have these compounds and they lure people on job opportunities. They torture them unless they provide by doing these cons.
There is no way out.
22-year-old Arnold from Uganda connected with us through Amnesty International. He asked us not to reveal his full name because he fears for his safety. But Arnold says he paid $2,000 to a job agency that sent him to a scam compound like this one in Cambodia, where he says he was forced to find victims for investment schemes using social media.
You feel their pain, you're also being tortured, you are being beaten.
After about 6 months, Arnold says he was released from the scam compound.
How do we fight this?
William's son says he is now using what his family learned to build an app to help people identify scams.
The thing that was the most gut-wrenching was when I asked him what you did it for, and he shared it was because I wanted to leave you something. Like, he's the gift. This is all we want.
Vicki Nguyen, NBC News, New York.
Staying with money headlines for a look at the latest on Wall Street. Amazon is boosting its stake in the satellite business. NBC News business and economy reporter Allie Canal is here with your Money Minute. Good morning, Allie.
Good morning, Joe. Yes, a big move in the space race here. So Amazon is acquiring satellite company Globalstar. It's an $11.6 billion deal, and it gives Amazon access to a network of low Earth orbit satellites as it looks to better compete with Starlink. That's the company owned by Elon Musk. Now, Starlink currently dominates the market with about 10,000 satellites in orbit. That compares to just over 200 for Amazon, which is racing to build out its own internet service. The move also comes as Starlink's parent company, SpaceX. It's expected to go public soon, with a potential valuation reported as high as $1.75 trillion. And over in streaming, a shift in how you see ads. YouTube says it will hold back ads during live streams when chat engagement spikes. That is intended to keep viewers locked in without those interruptions. Until now, the only way to avoid ads was paying up for YouTube Premium, which, by the way, just raised prices by $2 a month to $15.99. The price hike and these new ad changes come as the company looks to balance creator experience with revenue growth. And finally, $1 million surprise. A man in Paris won a Pablo Picasso painting worth about $1 million after buying a raffle ticket for just $117. The draw raised millions for charity, proving sometimes that cheapest bet can have the biggest payoff. I feel like I never win when I do any type of raffle.
Yeah, no kidding. And where I'm from in Minnesota, we do like meat raffles where you can win like a steak, but I think a Picasso is maybe a little better.
Yeah, probably a little better of a bet. But I don't know. I'm going to Minnesota and I'm going to do that.
Look for a meat raffle.
Amazing.
All right. Thanks, Allie. Appreciate it. We're now just under 2 months away from the start of the FIFA World Cup. The United States, Mexico, and Canada are preparing to welcome soccer fans from all around the globe for the biggest sporting festival on the planet. And while many will be hoping to enjoy the action on the field, some events off the field are threatening to overshadow the tournament. Adam Crafton is a senior writer for The Athletic. He joins us now to talk more about this. Adam, good to have you with us. I mean, this is turning into one of the most expensive World Cups ever. Fans have expressed outrage at ticket prices, especially for the games in the U.S. Tickets for the final in New Jersey going for around $11,000. I know that you've got new reporting about how even train tickets to MetLife Stadium from New York City could cost more than $100. So what's going on here, and what are you hearing from officials about these concerns over the costs?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know where to start with the cost of this tournament because they are just going up and up in pretty much every way. And that's been the way it's been since FIFA unveiled ticket pricing a month or two ago now. And you know, as you say, the headline prices for the tickets, but what we're also starting to see is some really expensive transit for people to get from cities towards stadiums that I think, you know, sometimes people hear, oh, there's games in New York, and the games aren't in New York, they're in New Jersey. Or they hear the games are in Boston and they're really in Foxborough. And the transit prices that we're hearing are currently being modelled are really high. So for a train to go from New York Penn to Meadowlands to MetLife Station, which is normally a $12.90 return ticket, we're hearing the price is going to be over $100. New Jersey Transit are currently explaining that by saying that the prices aren't finalized. I think we're expecting an announcement in the next couple of days on the official pricing. But what they are saying is these services and what we're having to put on in terms of the security for the transit services is going to cost us, I think, over $48 million. And therefore, the cost has to be relayed to someone. It either has to go to our own taxpayers in New Jersey, or it has to go to the people going to the games. And it looks like the decision being taken at the moment is to transfer more of that cost to the people going to the games.
Yeah, the costs just keep adding up. On top of that, there's concerns surrounding the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, the travel ban on some countries that are actually competing, like Senegal and Haiti. Amnesty International even warning this is leading to risks over human rights at the tournament. So the State Department has basically said safety and security are the White House's top priorities, but it does look like FIFA is thinking about asking the U.S. to pause these ICE raids. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so I mean, what we know is that President Trump and the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, have become seemingly very friendly over the past year or so. Infantino was at his inauguration. He was even at his pre-inauguration rally wearing a red tie. And then infamously, depending on one's view, he gave Trump a peace prize at the FIFA World Cup draw in December. What we're hearing now is that senior management at FIFA have had conversations with Gianni Infantino and suggested to him that he makes a direct president-to-president request to tone down ICE activity and ICE raids during this tournament to ensure it goes smoothly. Now, originally, the senior management were only thinking that this would be around kind of World Cup venues. But because it's across 11 cities, they then started to go more ambitious and think maybe it should be across all of the cities hosting World Cups from coast to coast. But then you also have teams staying at base camps in different states that aren't host cities. So it then became, could we ask for actually a nationwide ICE moratorium for the month? Now, the next question is, will Infantino actually go through with it? He told senior management, I understand, that he was receptive to it. But whether he will actually have the courage to ask Trump for that, and also whether the White House would be prepared to countenance those kind of questions from an outside organization such as FIFA on domestic policy is another question entirely.
Adam Crafton, a lot to talk about. Good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Coming up on Morning News Now, a big day for an 11-year-old boy and his new forever family.
It was very fun and very emotional, and I had a great time.
When we come back, the heartwarming surprise that made Adoption Day even more special. Let's end this hour with a heartwarming celebration. It was a huge day for one young boy as he officially joined his forever family in a very crowded courtroom. NBC Nightly News anchor Tom Yamas takes us there.
In this packed Texas courtroom, all eyes were on 11-year-old Alexander as he was about to be adopted by his foster parents.
I'll happily approve this adoption. Congrats, your name change. Congratulations.
Hugs and tears of joy filled the room. But this was more than just a moving moment for this family.
Tell me real quick why we're here. Tell me what's going on.
We're here to see our classmate get adopted.
You excited?
Yes.
Packed into the courtroom, 45 of his 5th grade classmates from Bell Elementary School, who all came out to surprise him, greeting him with hug after hug after hug. For Alexander, it meant everything.
It was very fun and very emotional, and I had a great time, and I appreciate all my friends coming with me.
Alexander Kane Johnson, who officially changed his name at the ceremony, has been with his mom, Vandria, dad, Tyrone, and 9-year-old sister, Alicia, for 2 years now. They all dressed in matching Western clothes for the special occasion. And this is the message he shared with his new parents.
I love them so much, and I just appreciate them for being my mom and dad.
Tom Yamas, NBC News.
The matching outfits, the perfect touch there. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off today. Right now on Morning News Now, on alert. Millions of Americans across the Midwest under severe weather alerts. Heavy winds, rain, and hail slamming the region. Thousands of people across multiple states without power this morning. Chicago's O'Hare Airport even grounding all flights for hours overnight amid dangerous winds and rain. While in Kansas,
we opened the door to come through to the family room, and the wall just disappeared in front of us. We've been here 11 years, and we lost everything.
communities sifting through the devastation after more than a dozen tornadoes tore through the state in just 2 days. We're on the ground where the daunting cleanup is underway. Also this hour, changing course. The U.S. military turning back several ships in the first 24 hours of that Iranian port blockade. The move coming amid a new push for peace talks after failed negotiations in Pakistan. Sources saying talks may happen as soon as this week, but major sticking points stand in the way. All this as China issues its most forceful criticism yet of the U.S. action in the Middle East. We'll bring you the latest from Israel and Beijing. Plus, happy tax day. Today marks the deadline for most Americans to file those returns. And if you still can't tell the difference between a W-2 and a 1099, don't panic. We've got some last-minute tips to get your paperwork in and get that refund. And later this hour, A Life in Style, a new exhibition at Buckingham Palace honoring Queen Elizabeth II ahead of what would have been her 100th birthday through her closet. We have a look inside the display of dazzling dresses, jewels, and bold colors that defined her legendary reign. Let's begin this hour with the wild weather that is sweeping across the country. Overnight severe storms brought powerful winds, heavy rain, and golf ball-sized hail to communities from Texas all the way to Pennsylvania. Well, folks in the Midwest are cleaning up from a system that spawned numerous tornadoes, damaging homes and businesses in several states. And this morning, parts of the East Coast are heating up with temperatures more than 25 degrees above normal. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is in Ottawa, Kansas, and joins us with the latest. Shaq, good morning.
Hi there, Joe. Yeah, it's been a tough start to the week for so many across the country, especially in the Midwest. Here in Kansas, this is the devastation that some folks are dealing with. You see a powerful tornado ripping off the roof to this motel, blowing out several of these windows for an adjacent building, knocking down a side wall to it, all as another round of storms that we saw overnight, knocking out power to tens of thousands across Wisconsin and Michigan. This morning, wild spring weather coast to coast with severe storms and soaring heat. In the Midwest, multiple reported tornadoes touching down overnight. Stunning videos showing a twister dominating the sky in Iowa. The winds whipping up dirt and debris, sweeping through communities in multiple states, including Michigan and Wisconsin, where trees were completely ripped from their roots. Those states also seeing storms bringing fierce rain, wind, and hail.
We'll get a boat in a minute.
And in Kansas, residents shocked at the devastation from multiple tornadoes that turned their lives upside down.
I lost everything. Like, I have no home. I have nowhere to go.
The twisters ripping buildings to shreds in hard-hit Ottawa, Kansas.
The neighborhood's a wreck. I cannot believe this. I used to work here.
The tornado tossing RVs, overturning cars, and ripping roofs off homes.
And walk out, and there is a 30-foot tall tree on the side of the building that was now 6 feet tall.
Jeffrey Castleberry says he was at home with 6 others, including an 18-month-old child, when the tornado rolled through.
We've been here 11 years, and we lost everything.
Meanwhile, from the plains to the Northeast, the heat is on. Summer-like temperatures arriving early for more than 100 million people. Temperatures in some areas projected to be 10 to 25 degrees above average. Now back here in Kansas, the National Weather Service says the tornado that led to this destruction was on the ground for more than 7 miles, reaching wind speeds of up to 125 miles an hour. We know the National Weather Service will be out surveying damage for the 7 reported tornadoes from yesterday. 5 of them taking place in Wisconsin. Fortunately, no serious injuries, Joe, have been reported.
All right, 7 miles. That is a long time. Shaq, thank you. For more on what's happening in your neighborhood, let's bring in meteorologist Angie Lastman with your forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning. Unfortunately, more of that severe weather on the table for us today. We've got already an active morning shaping up across parts of the Great Lakes, stretching across the Midwest and even the Northeast interior areas in on that action. We've also got a whole lot of flood watches, mainly across the entire state of Michigan, but stretching farther south into Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa. This, of course, as we gear up for more of those strong storms, but also additional heavy rain across this region. In the warm sector of this region, or of this system, we're going to see the best chance for some of those stronger storms to develop. So today it's Pittsburgh, stretching back to Omaha, down to Oklahoma City, and we've got all the threats on the table. So the hail, the wind gusts, and a couple tornadoes possible. If you live in Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, St. Louis, all those locations, Kansas City as well, you've got the potential to see that again today. Tomorrow, much of that works to the east, but we still see some of that severe storm development, especially as we get into the second half of the day. But it's a much smaller area. It's mainly centered across portions of New York, where we have that slight risk. Syracuse right in the bullseye of that. And we're not done there. We still go on into the end of our work week here Friday, where this new front kind of ramps things up across the plains. We'll see, again, the potential for some dangerous conditions into the afternoon hours. Notice, again, from the Midwest stretching down to the south, Kansas City, Cedar Rapids, all in that enhanced risk with, again, all of the threats on the table. On top of that, we've got some really warm conditions, potentially records across much of the east. This is all the potential records possible through Saturday. You can see a couple dozen of them across this region. As we look to the afternoon hours today, here's all the spots that I think will flirt with records. Likely seeing a record in Washington, D.C. with a high of 91 degrees today, 87 degrees in New York City. That's the record from Central Park. I actually think we might be a little warmer than that potentially, but we'll have to see. 83 in Columbus, 86 in Jackson. I mean, no matter where you look on this map, it is warmer than normal for this time of year and feeling very summer-like. Columbia expected to check in at 90 degrees, and it doesn't stop there. Even as we get into tomorrow, it's upper 80s to low 90s for a lot of folks. 91 in Philadelphia. We'll likely see a record there. 89 in Norfolk, 87 for Atlanta. All those locations that you see on that map have the potential to break some records. And we'll get a little bit of a break if you live farther north, but not so much if you live farther south. I mean, we go from the 90s on Friday to the 80s on Sunday in Raleigh, so I guess that's an improvement, but a much more significant cool down expected in New York City. Friday, we head to the 80s, but by Sunday, we are into those upper 60s. So it'll feel a little more typical for this time of year. In the meantime, find a cool spot.
Yeah, okay. Central Park's a good place to measure the temperature because the entire city is there this week.
I could not agree more. Everyone's thawing out across the Northeast, really.
It's a good way to look at it. Angie, thanks so much.
You got it.
Let's move now to the latest out of the Middle East. After Vice President J.D. Vance and his team failed to reach a deal with Iran during peace talks in Pakistan last weekend, a new round of in-person negotiations expected as early as this week. That's according to 2 people familiar with the ongoing negotiations. Despite U.S. forces launching a blockade on ships entering or exiting Iranian ports, sources told NBC News that opening the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear capabilities are both major sticking points. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us now from northern Israel with the latest. Richard, good morning.
I'm right now along the Israeli-Lebanese border. In fact, just over these hills right there is Lebanon. And according to a senior Israeli military official, this morning, Hezbollah from Lebanon fired dozens of rockets at Israel, many of them landing in this area. There were no fatalities reported. And this comes as President Trump says that new ceasefire talks with Iran could resume within the next 48 hours. U.S. Central Command this morning says the American blockade of Iranian ports in and around the Strait of Hormuz is now fully implemented, as President Trump indicates the U.S. is heading back to the negotiating table, telling the New York Post that a new round of ceasefire talks to end the war could begin by the end of the week. And speaking to Fox Business, Trump repeated his claim to justify the war, that Iran was about to make and use a nuclear weapon, allegations that are not supported by intelligence reports or weapons experts.
I had to divert, because if I didn't do that, right now you would have Iran with a nuclear weapon. And if they had a nuclear weapon, you would be calling everybody over there, sir. And you don't want to do that.
He added that the war's aims are already mainly accomplished.
I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
The new negotiations would likely take place once again in Pakistan. Vice President Vance, who led the last round of unsuccessful talks, said Trump is proposing normalization with Iran in exchange for an end or perhaps a long-term suspension of the country's nuclear program.
He said that if you're willing to act like a normal country, we are willing to treat you economically like a normal country. He doesn't want a small deal.
Iran is responding positively. Iran's president saying Iran doesn't seek war or instability, but warned that any attempt by the enemy to impose its will on us or force us to surrender is doomed to failure. There's also growing pressure from European allies to end this war. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom says his country won't participate in the United States' partial closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And Italy's Prime Minister announced that Italy is suspending military cooperation with Israel. Joe?
All right, thank you, Richard. Since the war in Iran began more than 6 weeks ago, China had remained largely on the sidelines of the conflict, but that changed yesterday. The Chinese leader called out the American blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz, saying it's, quote, dangerous and irresponsible. China has long had close ties with Iran. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer joins us now from Beijing with the details. Janice, good morning. We know leader Xi Jinping warned yesterday against a return to what he's calling the law of the jungle. And we know China has been facing growing pressure to use its influence to try and bring an end to this conflict. So walk us through some of your reporting and explain why China now is deciding to speak out publicly.
Well, Joe, these are the first real comments that China's leader Xi Jinping has made on the conflict, though he didn't name the U.S. or Israel or Iran when he made them. China is under some pressure right now to use its influence with Iran to help bring about an end to the conflict. Even President Trump has acknowledged that it was China that got Tehran to the negotiating table in Islamabad. It was a sign of rare cooperation, but it becomes a lot more complicated now with the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. So after weeks of saying very little on the conflict, beyond what you would expect to hear about urging all sides to back down, China is speaking out because the costs of remaining quiet are beginning to outweigh the benefits. It's not looking to get involved militarily. It has, however, been doubling down on diplomacy, with Russia's foreign minister, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Spain's prime minister, and the president of Vietnam coming through Beijing this week alone. Joe?
Yeah, let's look at what's at stake for China in this war. More than half the country's energy comes through that Strait of Hormuz. The nation is also the world's largest importer of crude oil. So what challenges does China face the longer this war drags on?
Well, China relies heavily on energy from countries in the Persian Gulf, including Iran. And as you mentioned, more than half of it is getting here through the Strait of Hormuz. So like much of the world, it's crucial for China for its cargo ships to keep moving and to not be blocked by Iran or blockaded by the U.S. One Chinese commercial ship sanctioned by the U.S., the Rich Starry, did manage to make it through the strait after some U-turns. And the U.S. Navy didn't stop it because it seems like the tanker left from the UAE, not Iran. But the Navy did say that it has turned back 6 ships in the first 24 hours of the blockade, that it has blockaded all commercial traffic from entering or leaving Iranian ports. So longer term, how does that impact China? Well, it can hit supplies not only of energy, but fertilizer, helium, all of these important things coming from the Gulf. There's also the shadow fleet of Chinese ships that transport Iranian oil to get around sanctions. China buys it and refines it at a discount. And in that case, it's less about the risk to supply than to the system for that supply. So China has economic interests that are extensive in the Middle East, and they're looking to protect them. But it also doesn't want to risk direct confrontation with the U.S. Joe?
Janice, U.S. intelligence reporting suggests China, though, is planning to provide new air defense weaponry to Iran in the coming weeks. Now, this is according to a person with knowledge of the matter, and this is something Beijing is denying. But we also know President Trump expected to visit Beijing next month. So tell us more about this reporting and how it could impact the president's visit.
Well, the intelligence was not definitive, according to NBC's reporting on this, though officials in Washington are taking it seriously. Beijing has vehemently denied that. But in an interview with Fox News, President Trump said that he had, quote, received a beautiful letter from Xi Jinping, a letter that was a reply to a letter that Trump said he sent to the Chinese leader because, quote, I heard China is giving weapons to Iran. Now, what else was asked or said in these letters isn't clear right now, but President Trump is expected to land here in a month, and there's nothing to suggest that the summit is going to be delayed a second time. But the stalemate in the Strait risks upending what has been a rare period of stability in U.S.-China relations. Yes, the trade issues are still there, but the rhetoric has really been dialed down. And President Trump has said repeatedly that he has a good relationship with Xi Jinping. And officials in the administration have been sending signals that this visit could yield big commitments from China to buy more U.S. goods. So it really is a balancing act right now for Beijing in terms of how much it wants to wade into the conflict, and for the White House in wanting the president's visit to China to be positive and to yield more than awkward moments between the leaders because the war or the blockade are still lingering. Joe?
Janice, thank you so much. Back here at home, former California Congressman Eric Swalwell is facing a new criminal investigation. Another woman came forward with disturbing allegations of sexual assault. Swalwell, a married father of 3 and veteran Democratic lawmaker, resigned from the House and ended his gubernatorial campaign following this wave of accusations. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal joins us now with more on the growing fallout. Camila, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. So Eric Swalwell is already facing a criminal investigation in Manhattan, but now the legal battle expands here to the West Coast. The latest accuser filing a report for sexual misconduct with the LA County Sheriff's Department. And we do want to warn you, some of the allegations are graphic.
This morning, authorities in Los Angeles beginning a criminal investigation against former Congressman Eric Swalwell after new and disturbing allegations.
I believe he drugged my drink. I only had 1 glass of wine.
Lana Drew says she met Swalwell in 2018 and thought they were developing a friendship. But during their third encounter, she says he sexually assaulted her.
He raped me. And he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died.
Swalwell's attorney denying all the allegations, saying they're false, fabricated, and deeply offensive, adding that this is a political hit job. But Drew's attorney, Lisa Bloom, says this is about accountability. She says Drew spoke to multiple people about the alleged crime at the time, kept text messages and this photo with Swalwell to prove the connection.
I want everyone to know that her testimony, in and of itself, is evidence, and I think she has a powerful story to tell.
And you believe it's enough for a criminal prosecution?
Yes, I do.
Multiple women have accused the former congressman of sexual assault or misconduct, including these 2 women who spoke exclusively to CBS.
It started out as professional and platonic, and then slowly they became more and more explicit.
I was terrified that if I spoke out against him, then people would think that I was a loose cannon.
Drew says she, too, was afraid of Swalwell's political power.
Was it hard for her to speak out?
Very hard for her to speak out.
Swalwell's 13-year career in the House ending Tuesday under bipartisan pressure.
He's made the right decision.
This is no country for creepy old men.
And while Drews has filed a police report with the LA County Sheriff's Department, the Los Angeles District Attorney says that when and if the case is presented, they will review the facts and decide whether there's enough evidence to file charges here. In the meantime, Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that the special election to replace Swalwell in Congress will take place on the 18th. August 18th. Joe?
All right, Camila, thank you so much. Today is the last day to file your federal tax returns and most state returns, unless you got approved for an extension. Experts say this is one of the most anticipated filing seasons in years. Tens of millions of Americans are expected to get bigger refunds than last year, and that's because of President Trump's new tax law. It increased the standard deduction and the child tax credit. It also added tax breaks for tips, overtime wages, and auto loan interest. If we're talking taxes, we must be talking to Montana Chief Tax Officer for Jackson Hewitt, friend of the show, Mark Stieber, who's got some last-minute tips. Mark, good to have you with us. People now have less than 24 hours to get things done. What's your last-minute advice?
Don't miss that deadline. Go get that money. Refunds are bigger and they're coming in fast, so take advantage of the time you have left. Don't court risk with those penalties and interest.
Talk about those penalties. What are they if you do miss the deadline today and don't get that extension taken care of?
The easiest one to avoid is the first one, the failure to file penalty. It's up to 25% plus interest compounding daily, and all you have to do is file a return, and if you can't get to that, then file your extension. It's pretty simple, and any pro can take care of it in a short order. Now, I don't like extensions, and I don't recommend them because you're doing your taxes twice, but if you've got no other option, extend. Secondly, if you owe taxes because you had a good year, your crypto came in, you have to pay taxes. It's not an extension of time to pay, so you got to pay your taxes or you face the second potential penalty, the failure to pay penalty, just as it says, another separate 25% penalty plus interest. And if you owed money throughout the year because your crypto was hitting or your side hustle was going, you might have a third penalty, the underpayment penalty, another 25% penalty. So court those at your own risk, but I'll finish by saying this. There's plenty of help out there. There's lots of tax guys. They've been drinking their coffee and their Red Bull. Go get your taxes done. There's a tax preparer near you.
I think you've been drinking your Red Bull, Mark. So is it too late for people to get an extension today if they need one? And also, if you make a mistake on your return, what happens?
Well, you've got till midnight, so you've got about 16 more hours East Coast time and a little more than that if you're out west. So there's plenty of time to get your taxes done or an extension. Now, if you make a mistake and you have to fix it, there's good news, bad news. You have 3 years to amend your return, add that credit, add that tip deduction, add that senior deduction. But also on the other side, if you left off something that the IRS might be interested in, they have 3 years to come and ask you for that money plus penalties and interest. So there's a 3-year window, good news, bad news, but you still have about 16 hours to get that extension in and even file that tax return. It's not that big a lift. Go get it done.
Let's talk about President Trump's new tax law. It applies to federal returns. Those same deductions are not an option on several state returns. Do we know which states can get people all or at least some of these new tax breaks?
Yeah, most of the states have embraced the Big Beautiful Bill or the Working Family Tax Act. So it's a very isolated number, and they're even looking at it. But the bill was passed at such a crazy time in the middle of the summer. Some state legislatures were not in session and didn't get there till later. Then there's the how do you pay for it? But many states are coming on board later with either they'll fix it and just send you more money, or you can amend and go get it. So it's a very isolated number. But the big dollars are the federal dollars. We're seeing increased refunds. More people are getting refunds, less balanced dues. It's really a good year on a federal return, and many states are piggybacking on top of that.
Mark, I'm noticing the shirt behind you there. Is there any significance to that?
Yeah, after today, baby, I'm on holiday. So, yes, I'm looking forward to midnight tonight and then a little bit of downtime, and then we get started again because 26 is well underway. So get planning and get your taxes done and start thinking about next year.
So Mark will be wearing that shirt, and do not bother to call him tomorrow because he will not be answering his phone. Mark Stieber, thank you so much. I always appreciate you.
Hey, Joe, good to see you. Go get that money.
More to come here on this hour of Morning News Now. Later, slopaganda. The U.S. and Iran might be working toward peace, but a different war is raging online. What you need to know about the AI-generated propaganda that's sweeping social media. Up next, though, in his own words, we are hearing directly from Brian Hooker for the first time since his wife vanished in the Bahamas nearly 2 weeks ago. What he told NBC News in the hours after being released from police custody. Stay with us. We are back with an update on that case in the Bahamas involving an American woman who disappeared after allegedly falling overboard a small boat. Authorities say her husband, Brian Hooker, is considered a suspect in her disappearance. NBC's Jesse Kirsch sat down with him just hours after he was released from police custody. Jesse, good morning.
This was the first time Brian Hooker spoke out to us on camera since his wife Lynette vanished almost 2 weeks ago. He says what happened was an accident, but police are not so sure. And I asked him what he told investigators in his defense.
Did police ever explicitly ask you if you hurt your wife?
Of course.
What did you say to them? I said I've never harmed Lynette, and I never would harm Lynette, and I want to find Lynette.
This morning, we're finally hearing from Brian Hooker about that tragic boat ride, his wife's disappearance, and the agonizing days since she allegedly vanished in the waters off the Bahamas.
I don't think I've ever been apart from her.
in 25 years for this long.
Brian Hooker says Lynette accidentally fell from the couple's boat in rough conditions 11 days ago. But with his lawyer looking on, he would not go into great detail about the active investigation into his wife's disappearance.
If there's anything you can share about Easter weekend that you remember.
I cannot share anything. As you can imagine, things are chaos and hectic, and I welcome any attention, anything that helps me further my goal of finding Lynette.
Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime, and police released him late Monday.
Any response?
Anything to say? But here in the Bahamas, the country's top cop tells me investigators do not trust Hooker's story.
Police still look at you as a suspect. Why do you think that is?
I think some of it is probably the media attention, which is understandable. My time with the Bahamian police was a small part of hell and a bigger part of hell that I'm really in right now. But they have to do their job.
I also asked Brian about his relationship with Lynette, which has at times reportedly been volatile.
What do you want people to know about your marriage with Lynette?
I want people to know that Lynette is my life, and we have been together almost half my life, and we belong to each other.
He says he plans to keep searching for Lynette by water and even by air if he can hire a plane.
No one has told me not to stop looking, and I'm going to keep looking.
The Royal Bahamas Defense Force tells me it is looking to suspend its search for Lynette by tomorrow. They've been analyzing factors including drift, wind, and tide, and the reality is they are simply running out of viable places to look for her. Meanwhile, Brian Hooker's attorney tells me she expects police could give Brian access to the couple's sailboat, possibly in the next few days. Back to you.
Thank you, Jesse. More developing news now. Hundreds of people are missing after a migrant boat capsized in the Indian Ocean. Matt Bodner joins us now to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Around 250 people are missing after a boat capsized last week in the Andaman Sea. That is a body of water in the northeast corner of the Indian Ocean. Those missing are believed to be Rohingya and Bangladeshi, and there were children among them. The boat left Bangladesh and was headed towards Malaysia. A rescue ship has found 9 people. Moving along now to South Korea, where an American YouTuber has been sentenced to 6 months in prison. The content creator known as Johnny Somali sparked outrage in South Korea when he filmed himself kissing a statue commemorating Koreans imprisoned by the Japanese as sex slaves in World War II. He later apologized, saying he wasn't aware of the statue's significance. And we'll wrap up this hour in Warsaw. I tried to warn you, Joe, on Monday. You did not listen. Now take a look at this. A humanoid robot chasing a wild boar through the streets of Warsaw. The robot seen here is actually sort of a big deal in Poland. His name is Edward Warczewski. He has a Polish social media presence. There's some good comments from Polish users on this new video. Quote, "This is a historic event. Glad to live in a time when this represents Poland." Not great, Joe.
Matt, do we know why the robot is chasing the boars?
Clout.
Okay. Enough said. Thank you, Matt.
Enough said. See you.
Coming up, prioritizing the president's agenda, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche speaking out on President Trump's deep involvement with Justice Department affairs. His comments and other headlines from Washington next. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the acting attorney general defending President Trump getting involved in the Justice Department. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona joins us now with the latest. Mel, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. We begin with that NBC News interview of acting attorney general Todd Blanche. When asked about Trump's deep involvement with the DOJ, Blanche said Americans should be, quote, happy about Trump's hands-on role. And he dismissed concerns about Trump trying to order the previous attorney general to prosecute his political foes, saying the president is just making his expectations clear and hailing it as a form of transparency. The comments are a stark contrast to previous leaders of the DOJ who have traditionally tried to create a firewall between the White House and the agency. While administrations have long influenced policy at the DOJ, dictating criminal investigations is another matter. Next, the president's feud with the pontiff is putting more people in the crosshairs. Over the weekend, Trump railed against Pope Leo, who has used his platform to criticize the war in Iran. That prompted backlash from the Italian prime minister. who called Trump's comments unacceptable. Now, Trump is firing back at the prime minister, telling an Italian publication, "I'm shocked at her. I thought she had courage, but I was wrong." The back and forth is notable given their prior close relationship and shows just how much the war is straining the United States' relationships with our allies. And finally, the Trump administration has moved to toss the remaining convictions related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The filing asked the court to vacate the convictions of 4 members of the Proud Boys, who were convicted in 2023 on multiple felony charges. All but 1 were convicted of seditious conspiracy, and 1 was even seen on video pepper spraying police officers. While their sentences had already been reduced to time served, their cases had not been dismissed outright. But now this latest request would vacate those convictions. And that's what's making news in politics this morning. Joe.
All right, Mel, thank you so much. Now, the U.S. and Iran may be in a ceasefire, but the propaganda war is raging across social media. You've probably seen those clips of President Trump in Lego form and cartoon-style videos of missile attacks, all generated by artificial intelligence. But who is behind them, and how effective are they? NBC News Now anchor Gadi Schwartz takes a look at the phenomenon of what's been dubbed slopaganda.
But a fraud. Yo, call him what he is. Liar!
In the war between the U.S. and Iran, there's a new front opening up. Not on the battlefield, but online, where the propaganda of old has been replaced with what's being called slopaganda. Meme-ready and quickly made with AI.
Slopaganda is a mixture of propaganda and artificial intelligence.
Mark Alfano is a professor of philosophy in Australia. He says whatever its form, the intention is always the same politically and emotionally: to incite, to polarize, to simplify and often dehumanize opponents, whether in real wars abroad or culture wars at home. But how did we get here? Let's go back in time.
The term propaganda arose during the Protestant Reformation, a term that was coined by the Catholic Church. There are woodcuts of German peasants, for instance, farting on the Pope.
And cartoons as propaganda go back centuries. Even during World War II, Disney turned Donald Duck into Commando Duck. From 1941 to 1945, the U.S. government commissioned Walt Disney Studios to create over 30 animated propaganda cartoons, often anti-Nazi or anti-Japan.
What is new now is this can be produced really quickly in response to current events and spread to not hundreds or thousands of people, but hundreds of millions of people.
But recently, these AI-generated videos showing President Trump and the war in Iran in Lego form are starting to define the slopaganda war of today. They're made by a team of pro-Iranian activists known as Explosive Media, and the group has released over a dozen videos since the start of the war in February, many of them racking up millions of views across social media. In a BBC interview, the group admitted to working with the Iranian government. Explosive Media told our team their goal is to present realities, events, and the stories behind them in a way that's engaging, accessible, and easy to understand, adding, "We aim to turn complex topics into compelling visual narratives that resonate globally." But is that what's happening?
Everyone understands what Lego images look like. And one of the things that's interesting about that in particular, as opposed to, say, like deep fakes, is that no one is deceived. It's more like a matter of evoking emotions and directing attention.
Mavericks inbound. Meanwhile, the White House has responded to questions about their use of pop culture in official social media posts, with a post saying, "Nowhere in the Constitution does it say we can't post banger memes." As for navigating a world where creating and disseminating propaganda has never been easier,
part of it is a matter of digital literacy on the part of individuals, but I think we also need systematic responses that involve things like regulation and legislation, because it's not fair to expect individuals to govern the world of information that they're encountering.
Let the ships go through. Our thanks to Gadi Schwartz for that report. NBC News reached out to the White House for comment. It responded in a statement saying, in part, quote, "The White House is proud to showcase the many examples of Iran's ballistic missiles production facilities and dreams of owning a nuclear weapon being destroyed in real time." As gas prices climb across the country, more people are looking for relief in electric vehicles. Cars.com data shows web search traffic for EVs has jumped more than 40% just over the last month. Reporter Robert Goulston from our Boston affiliate explains.
Grayson Dorvell cringes at the pump. Tell us the price and what you think about it.
47, extremely high.
When he fills up for his 1 hour and 15-minute commute every day from Foxborough to Woburn. Fed up?
A little bit fed up.
Amanda White has been electric only for 3 years. How do you feel when you see these gas prices?
Great. Yeah, I mean, definitely been a savings.
Boston-based Car Guru says it has seen a 31% increase in views for new electric vehicles and a more than 40% bump in used EVs.
I've seen a huge uptick.
Andrew Diaz is the general manager of Greenwave in Salem, one of the state's first all-used electric vehicle dealerships. He says even without the federal incentives previously offered, the gas prices are a big enough incentive to buy in.
When it starts hitting your wallet in a everyday sense, you start to think about it. And obviously there's still the environmental factors as well. And I think those combining with each other are pushing people to take the leap and see what an EV can do for them.
But EVs are not a one-stop shopping experience.
You really have to plan for an electric car.
Esther Park's company Stressless Car helps connect people with the right vehicle.
If you're paying $20,000 less for a gas car, well, $20,000 buys you an awful lot of gas. So you have to look at the whole scenario.
Both types of fuels seem to have some drivers.
For longer trips, it's just a little bit of planning.
At a fork in the road.
Because they're not ready yet.
You're not sold yet?
No. I do hybrid first.
Our thanks to Robert Goulston for that report. The head of marketing at Car Guru says that despite the recent uptick in interest, electric vehicle sales are still down year over year. We're staying on the road for a look at some other money news. This morning, Uber is betting big on robo-taxis. NBC News business economy reporter Allie Canal is here with your Money Minute. Allie, good morning.
Yeah, hi, Joe. Good morning. We are in the future, right? According to the Financial Times, Uber has reportedly committed more than $10 billion to autonomous vehicles, investing in both the cars and the companies that build them. That investment includes about $2.5 billion in equity stakes and more than $7.5 billion on robo-taxi fleets. This comes as Uber ships away from its traditional gig model to a future dominated by driverless rides. We've reached out to Uber about the report. We're still waiting to hear back. And from robo-taxis to the AI race behind them, the NAACP is suing Elon Musk's xAI, alleging it violated the Clean Air Act by using natural gas turbines to power those data centers near Memphis. The group says the facilities are located near communities with a higher share of Black residents, raising concerns about health and environmental impact. The lawsuit comes as tech companies race to build out AI infrastructure. NBC News has reached out to both sides for comment. And finally, a new workplace trend to watch out for. More companies, they're embracing something called conscious unbossing. It's a model that cuts back on traditional management and gives employees more control over decisions. Supporters say it can boost speed and innovation, but critics warn it may lead to confusion, burnout, and less accountability. So I can see both sides to this. I feel like there's a balance, right? You want to be able to get that feedback from your boss, but you also want to have that autonomy to be able to grow. It's tricky. Yeah. It's tricky out there in corporate America.
I just want to know if Gwyneth Paltrow is doing it at Goop.
Conscious uncoupling, conscious unbossing. Yes.
That's all I want to know. All right, Allie, thanks
so much.
I love it. Appreciate it. If you've ever tried to sleep on a plane, you know the struggle, but that could soon change. Air New Zealand is rolling out a new option for tired travelers on long-haul flights. It's offering something that until now has mostly been reserved for those flying first class. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz had the chance to check it out. Liz, good morning.
Well, hey there, we recently told you about the Sky Couch that will turn a row of economy seats into a lie-flat bed. But wait until you see the Sky Nest. This is essentially bunk beds in the sky, and it's not for first-class passengers. This is for those of us back in coach who might be willing to pay a little bit more for a chance to stretch out our legs and get some sleep on a long flight.
It's a common complaint for any frequent flyer.
This is actually insane.
Tight quarters on airplanes.
This much legroom, barely an inch of legroom.
But now one airline is reimagining the coach experience.
Our latest invention has been the Sky Nest, which is a bunk bed in the sky in economy class.
The Skynest is the creation of Air New Zealand, the first airline in the world to outfit their 787 Dreamliners with these in-flight sleep pods for long-haul flights, beginning with their longest flight, 16 hours from JFK to Auckland.
Come and check out our Skynest.
This is it?
This is it.
The Skynest includes 6 beds that passengers can rent for 4-hour windows at an additional cost of $495.
You'll get a little pop-up on your screen saying that you can come to the Skynest, and then we'll put you to sleep.
Okay, so we're inside the Skynest here. You can see the 3 bunks on either side. Each of these bunks comes with fresh sheets, a blanket, this little amenities kit, earplugs, much needed, a charger for your phone, a seatbelt, and of course a curtain for privacy.
The bunk beds all part of a growing effort by airlines to make flying coach not necessarily cheaper, but more comfortable. Last month, United Airlines announced what they plan to call Relax Row, which will allow economy passengers to turn an entire row of seats into a lie flat bed, including a mattress pad, extra pillows, and bedding. While Southwest is adding extra legroom seats, an option that, like other airlines, comes with an extra charge.
Over the years, they've gotten really creative in being able to add little extras back, but at a cost. Either you pay up for a little bit more of a premium experience, or you put up with the bare minimum.
Inside the Skynest,
All right, hi from inside. This is what it looks like. It's actually quite cozy.
potential flyers tell us it's something they could get behind.
Definitely, because sometimes, I'm sorry to say, those planes are very small.
The headroom is a little challenging.
Better than sitting in the economy for 16 hours?
Definitely it beats that.
Air New Zealand believes these sleep bunks could revolutionize flying. The question is, will other airlines follow?
Do you think this is the future of economy air travel?
Honestly, I've spent a lot of time in coach. For everyone's sake, I hope it is.
And for those curious, these beds are about 6 feet 4 inches, so not everybody, but most people should be able to squeeze in. Back to you.
6'3", I just slide in there. All right, Liz, thank you so much. Coming up, a closet fit for a queen. Buckingham Palace is remembering Queen Elizabeth II in a new exhibit of her wardrobe. We're getting an inside look at the collection of boldly colored garments and extraordinary jewels that defined her style. Next. Finally this hour, next Tuesday is Queen Elizabeth's birthday. She would have turned 100. And a new exhibition just opened at Buckingham Palace celebrating her legacy as a style icon. NBC News International correspondent Molly Hunter is at Buckingham Palace, joins us with a special preview, which is appropriate because Molly is so stylish. Molly, good morning.
Right back at you, Joe. Good morning from a very beautiful, got all these flowers out at Buckingham Palace. But this is really exciting, definitely worth hopping the pond for, getting your tickets, because the entire Queen's closet is now on display. Hundreds of gowns and dresses spanning almost 100 years, and visitors will be able to get an up-close and personal look. And Joe, as you said, it is all rolling out in advance of what would have been her 100th birthday next week. Take a look.
Queen Elizabeth II, an icon beloved around the globe. A record-breaking reign, an unmistakable style, and a timeless image. This month, a new exhibition at Buckingham Palace marks what would have been her 100th birthday. Queen Elizabeth II, Her Life and Style, offers a rare, intimate look inside the late Queen's fashion archive.
The really special thing about this exhibition is being able to present such a comprehensive and rounded perspective on the Queen's relationship with fashion, from sketches, personal correspondence, archive items.
Starting with this christening robe worn by 62 royal babies, never before displayed, the exhibit includes more than 300 pieces from her royal closet, spanning nearly a century, tracing the looks that defined her public image, including her unforgettable wedding dress, the young princess dazzling as she married Philip in 1947. Crafted in ivory silk, it featured a 15-foot train adorned with 10,000 hand-embroidered pearls. Designed by British designer Sir Norman Hartnell and paid for in part with ration coupons, a symbol of post-war Britain.
On the head of the sovereign
And then her crowning moment, June 1953.
Is Your Majesty willing to take the oath?
I am willing. The first coronation to be fully televised. Millions around the world tuning in, not just to witness history, but also to admire a dress that defined a new Elizabethan era. Because for Queen Elizabeth, style was never about fashion. It was about presence. Her guiding mantra, you have to be seen to be believed. Her biographer, Robert Hardman, also quoted her saying, I can never wear beige because nobody will know who I am. And so every choice was a deliberate expression of that mission.
What I really hope that visitors will take away is an understanding of how the Queen used fashion to fulfill her role.
From bold, bright colors, vivid greens, striking reds, deep, commanding blues, to softer tones like this pale pink. Worn for that surprise appearance with Daniel Craig at the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics. Her style a global hallmark of consistency, elegance, and quiet power. On display frequently on that palace balcony for celebrations and 4 jubilees.
I do hope you can see me today from where you are.
And on the world stage too, meeting leaders including 13 American presidents. Also part of the exhibit, her signature accessories, the ever-present handbags, a feminine touch, which also conveyed authority. The statement hats, required for royal races and weddings, and for state banquets and the opening of Parliament. She donned sparkling ceremonial headwear.
Pray be seated.
Crowns, tiaras, and extraordinary jewels steeped in history, worn by kings and queens before her. And pieces made just for her too. Personal gifts, an aquamarine tiara, and Burmese ruby headpiece. All part of a legacy that not only endures, but still resonates.
Throughout her life, she supported British fashion design on the global stage. Her unique style has really inspired many contemporary designers, both in the United Kingdom and abroad.
And Joe, we also just got the itinerary for the upcoming royal state visit. The King and Queen are heading to the States at the end of this month. They will be visiting New York, Virginia, and Washington. At the White House, they will have high tea in addition to some other events and a history-making moment. King Charles will become the first king to address Congress. Of course, his mother became the first monarch to do so many years ago. Joe?
And I'm sure they'll be very fashionable while doing it. All right, Molly, thank you so much. Appreciate it. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but don't go anywhere. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.